Rural areas have a lot to offer, but they are currently facing one big challenge: mobility. With more and more people craving a big city life, rural mobility is facing a decline, leaving those who inhabit rural areas with little to no option for accessing basic services, development, and social participation. It's time to change that, and it's definitely time to rethink rural mobility. The SMARTA project has started in 2018 as an initiative sponsored by the European Parliament and funded by the European Commission to enhance the current policies and practices on mobility in rural areas. Its goal was to explore ways to ensure sustainable rural mobility by improving shared mobility integrated with public transport across different European areas.
Today, rural mobility is characterized by the almost total dependence on the private car. If you don't have a car, and there is no public transport, it is very hard to get around.
SMARTA has started 3 main strands of activities which will lead to policy recommendations.
SMARTA used insight papers to examine the national frameworks within which rural mobility sits. A key finding is that almost every European country lacks a comprehensive policy for rural mobility. That means no clear goals, no specific targets, no clear responsibilities, and insufficient funding to meet the needs.
Despite all of this, like in every good story, we have seen the light at the end of the tunnel. Through the Good Practice Collection, SMARTA demonstrated that public transport by bus is not the only rural mobility option.
There are many examples of good practice in rural mobility. These are shown in 4 clusters. Organisational governance, such as Donegal Local Link in Ireland and Elba Mobility Agency in Italy. Operations and service management, such as Groningen Drenthe Mobility Hub in Netherlands and Bummelbus in Luxembourg. Shared vehicles, such as GoMobile in Austria and Talabont in Wales, and technology and apps, such as Valorana in Spain and Vela in Denmark.
In understanding the rural mobility issues, SMARTA has closely collaborated with a large number of stakeholders from all over Europe. A very important event in Brussels brought together the key players in rural shared mobility. The European Commission built on the momentum created in Brussels to invest in SMARTA too, where additional rural mobility schemes from Greece, Austria, Portugal and Romania were added. Researching what lacks and what works has driven the SMARTA project to ask, what turns a rural shared mobility scheme into a success story?
The collaboration with pilot sites has been one of the key activities of the project.
Each pilot demonstrated different aspects of rural shared mobility: superstops and integrated mobility in Ireland, ITS system for school bus services in Italy, e-hitchhiking in France, and DRT community-based services in Germany. Additionally, we have also worked with good practice sites in the Netherlands, Spain, Latvia, Denmark, and Poland.
We wanted to have a wide variety of pilots to inspire other rural areas to improve their rural mobility. The pilots we choose needed to be operational in a very short time lapse. We have different services also. We have ride sharing, bicycle sharing, demand responsive transport services. The rural services we have been studying really changed life of lots of people, especially the people that had no mobility, no access to mobility previously to the service.
SMARTA 2 demonstrator in Brașov, Romania, focuses on developing ride-sharing and raising awareness on the importance of using carpooling and public transport as opposed to the use of the personal vehicle.
Due to the pandemic, pilots were delayed, so quantitative results were not always available. There is really huge potential to improve rural mobility.
SMARTA facilitated a very good discussion and exchange of views, ideas and experiences between pilot sites representatives from all over Europe. 2 series of webinars were organized in early summer and late autumn in 2020 to allow the stakeholders from Europe to discuss their challenges, successes, barriers and opportunities in developing successful mobility schemes. After all we've learned, we cannot help but ask, how does the future look like for rural shared mobility?
Rural areas are a part of Europe's engine for progress. Smart shared rural mobility services will have an essential role to play in the future in the mobility mix. And in this way, we can ensure thriving, inclusive, rural communities across the continent that can make a real contribution to economic growth and social progress.
It is clear that there needs to be a change on the policy level. But why should the European Parliament and the European Commission get involved and take action?
We need a new comprehensive policy for rural mobility, covering all the European rural area. It should improve accessibility for everyone, leading to sustainable mobility. The European rule is to require that each member state develop its rural mobility policies, define the responsibility and ensure the funding.